asked by a couple of visitors if it's a church. It actually is not a church. It was built from scratch to look like one. That is one of the interesting things about us as a museum, is that it was built to look like one, but was never a museum. All the pieces that you see here today are all antique pieces dating back to the Industrial Revolution era, except for two. The dome, which is right up ahead, and a piece called Religion and Throne, which I will be talking about in the tour. The rest are all antique, and they come from different churches in the U.S., mostly the northeastern area. And they're here in San Juan now. You might wonder why. Why San Juan? Why this museum? Well, the original collector's name, Lawrence Gelman, is basically the founder for our museum. And he started collecting. It took him over 30 years to cultivate this collection. But he grew up in Chicago, so he was used to seeing these beautiful cathedrals with stained glass, and he fell in love with the stained glass. And eventually he came down here to medical residency and met the future Mrs. Gelman. They built a family and a life here, and now the collection is here as well. It's found a home as well here in the Rio Grande Valley. But without further ado, I do want to also state that we do have 3 pieces that I wanted to really touch on, because you won't see these anywhere else. And it is why I wanted to come here in the lobby area and start here. So in the museum, we have 2 different styles: the American Art Nouveau style, which you'll see here in the lobby area, and the Maronitic style, which I'm going to be pointing out inside the museum. But if you come here, you'll notice that it's very experimental. You'll see that some of the pieces do pop up, and it does give a 3D effect. Yes. Now, this artist is John Lafarge, and he was known to many as a mentor and a teacher, and he was a true heart and artist. And you'll see that a lot of these experimental techniques you'll still see done today in modern glass. So I have pointed out that plating method, but there's also the jeweling method, which will have chunks of glass, the use of the opalescent glass, and marbling as well. You'll also see a lot of Tiffany pieces in the museum. Now, what's really interesting is in the art world, everyone kind of knew each other. And initially, Tiffany and John Lafarge were friends. Keyword being were. So John Lafarge had entered a patent to the utilization of opalescent glass in his designs. Now, a year later, Tiffany inputted a patent for the use of Febro glass, which looked very similar to opalescent glass, and that turned them into bitter rivals. John Lafarge never recovered from that. He was very, very bitter and angry, and so they became competitors at the end, unfortunately. But that sometimes happens. With Tiffany, you'll see a lot of complex color palettes, and you'll see what we like to call drapery. They'll mimic the folds of garments. And to do that, the glass is heated in such a way that it becomes malleable. It's not a true solid, so that is possible once it reaches a certain temperature. And you'll see that throughout. It really makes the pieces very interesting. Now, behind you, you'll see the altars. Now, in this museum, we do have Roman Catholic altars. And one of the ways you can identify if it is a Roman Catholic altar is through the altar table here, the 5 crosses. These are symbolic to the Christ, to the wounds that Jesus got when he was crucified. If you want to step closer, you're welcome to. Unfortunately, we can't touch the altar. We do try to preserve it, but if you are more of a tactile person like I am, feel free to touch our front desk. It does have marble on it. If you really like the touch of marble, please feel free to do so. But you'll see there, and in the center, there is yes, the 5 crosses there. They're carved into the actual altar itself. And right here, they'll normally embed a religious artifact. It could be a lock of hair or a piece of cloth. And that's one of the processes that they'll do to consecrate the altar itself. You'll see in this particular altar, they have removed it, which is common when an altar is removed from the church, and part of the consecration process. To remove that artifact from there, you'll see that this has become flush with the altar itself. and it has been removed. So that's something to keep in mind.
What was put in there then?
I believe for this one might have been a piece of cloth. So it's usually either a martyr or someone who is very important in the community. I'm going to put this back, but I did want to point it out because the altars that you'll see inside are much bigger, and you won't be able to see the actual altar table on because it's pretty far away. But if you'd like to follow me this way.
Hey, I want to point out one thing. Y'all, this is my love language right here, okay? One of the reasons why Louis Tiffany is so amazing is most stained glass is one piece. But if you look back here, you'll see shadowing. That's because he's got another whole nother stained glass behind that stained glass.
Wow.
That became pretty common for American Art Nouveau style, but Tiffany was one of the ones that loved, the studios that really loved pushing that plating method.
So the artists make their own stained glass, is that right?
So for the stained glass itself, the sheets of stained glass, they would go to different companies such as Kokomo Stained Glass Company, or others like John Lafarge. I believe he would experiment and try to make his own glass, but normally they would have other factories manufacture the glass, they would create the designs and eventually the pieces themselves.
How come the lower part of his left leg is different than the right leg?
So that's supposed to be the idea of the perspective to make it look a little bit farther away. But also with stained glass, that came out what it is created of, but what was used to create that color, it gets to still react to sunlight, water, Please be towards the entrance because I do want to show you something really cool about the museum.
It's amazing.
So it is pretty bright outside, but the stained glass here in the museum is no longer lit by sunlight. It is lit by LED panels. You all would like to take turns looking into the corridor. You'll notice that there is a corridor with the lighting effects. It took Dr. Gelman and the light architects about a year and a half to perfect this type of lighting effect. Because as you know, light is it has a large spectrum of different light frequencies. And so initially we did try having mostly white light, but it did not complement the stained glass very well. Instead, we decided to move towards the current light effects, which is a cold white light with ribbons of red, green, blue, yellow LED lights. And so that kind of created that light, natural lighting. So for this particular style, this is the Mary Munich style, and they'll use different enamels, for example, enamels. Now what's really interesting about the lighting is that it does require a lot of electricity, about as much as it would to light up a football field. So that, yes, so they have what's called a silver finishing, and so that helps the light also react with the stained glass. So, as you probably all know, stained glass has been around for many, many years, dating back to the medieval times. But The pieces that you see here today are what most people think about for stained glass, referencing biblical scenes in the Bible. What's really important is that these pieces, these artworks, were created to help the general population understand these stories in the Bible. But interestingly, not quite, but you do see on this side, there's figures that look horrified at the act being done to the tree. Now, if it doesn't really feel familiar to you, that's okay. Most people would not have a sense of connection unless they were of German heritage. Now, this piece here told us that the parishioners of the